The Cosmic Hoax. Gagarin was never in space. A Soviet propaganda hoax has been revealed in the former communist countries, for example Hungary, Estonia, and Poland. It was a myth that everyone had really believed in, that the Soviet Air Force officer Yuri Gagarin had made a spaceflight. Many Western governments were aware of this Soviet bluff, but did not want to reveal the truth. It was not intended for the people to know that the Soviet Union was a backward state. One interesting book about this is Gagarin, A Cosmic Lie Gagarin, Cosmicus Hazagszag, Budapest, 1990, by the Hungarian journalist István Nemera. Not one word about the contradictions surrounding Gagarin's journey into space have been published in Sweden, where the Soviet Union is still regarded with a great deal of respect. Such a revelation would be far too embarrassing. Until 1961, the United States had managed to send up 42 satellites, the Soviet Union only 12. The United States also informed the world that Alan Shepard would make a space journey in the space, Craft Freedom 7 on May 5, 1961. The Soviet Union was forced to do something to save face. For this reason, a Soviet cosmonaut, Vladimir Ilyushin, was sent up into space on April 7, 1961. The Americans intercepted several radio communications between him and the Space Center in the Soviet Union. Ilyushin's landing failed and he was seriously injured. He could not be shown to the public. It was claimed that he had been injured in a car accident. He was sent to China to receive better medical treatment. The Russian TV documentary Cosmonaut Cover-Up 2001 also claims that on April 7, 1961, Vladimir Ilyushin left for space, got into trouble during the first orbit, and crash-landed in China during the third orbit. Ilyushin was badly injured. He was returned to the Soviet Union a year later. Ilyushin was killed in an engineered car accident in 1961. The Soviet Union did not have a spare capsule at that time, and in Moscow it was decided to orchestrate a huge bluff, a cosmic lie. Radio Moscow claimed that a Soviet cosmonaut, Yuri Gagarin, had been sent up into space on the morning of April 12, 1961 with the space rocket Vostok. According to the official announcement, he had already landed and was in fine health. The whole world believed this except for the Western intelligence services. They had not managed to register any radio communication between Gagarin and the Space Center. This hoax was sloppily orchestrated. Polish newspapers announced already on the morning of April 12 that a Soviet cosmonaut had been in space. Newspapers in other countries did not report Gagarin's flight until April 13th. In a book written for the West, Soviet propagandists claimed that simple peasants recognized Yuri Gagarin soon after he landed in a field and enthusiastically shouted, "Gagarin, Gagarin." But nothing about his space journey had been reported at that time, no pictures of him had been published, and his name had not been mentioned. The message from radio and TV was sent out 35 minutes after the alleged journey. Were the peasants psychic? The newspaper Sovetskaya Rossiya claimed that Gagarin was wearing a blue flight suit when he landed. In his memoirs, Gagarin himself claimed he was dressed in an orange flight suit. At his press conference, Gagarin read from notes when he related his journey. During the press conference, he made several crucial mistakes. Gagarin stated that weightlessness was no problem. Everything seemed just normal. We now know that this is not the case. The cosmonaut German Titov, for example, had difficulties with his balance and had heart problems. American astronauts experienced similar symptoms. Gagarin then made his most serious mistake, despite the fact that he was constantly assisted by experts who often spoke about discoveries in space. He said, "Then I saw South America." This is impossible. At that time it was night in South America, which meant that it could not be seen at all. According to the official reports, Gagarin began his space journey at 9:07 Moscow time. He was supposed to have flown over South America at 9:22 Moscow time. In Chile, the time would have been 2:22, in Brazil 3:22. He could never have reached South America in 15 minutes. For other cosmonauts, it took 45 minutes. Foreign journalists wondered, when will the photographs that Gagarin took in space be published? Gagarin was silent, thought for a moment, and answered, "I didn't have a camera with me." Even unmanned Soviet space probes had photographic equipment on board. It would have been an important propaganda triumph to publish Gagarin's pictures from space. The Soviet Union would never have missed an opportunity like that. Shepard's pictures were cabled out immediately. Parts of his flight were also shown on TV. At the press conference, it was never explained whether Gagarin landed in his capsule or was ejected. If he had used the catapult seat, he would have become several centimeters shorter. This could easily have been ascertained. All pilots who have catapulted have become somewhat shorter as a result of spinal deformation. When Gagarin wanted to travel in space for real in 1968, he was disposed of, according to Istvin Nemira. His plane exploded on March 27 the same year. The official report concerning this event contained many contradictions. The report was classified during the communist period. It claimed that there was not much left of Gagarin's body after the crash. In that case, how did his flight suit come to land in the top of a tree? There are far too many questions surrounding Gagarin's space flight in April 1961. A British team of researchers who questions the propaganda surrounding manned journeys to the moon also confirms this information. When will the truth be admitted officially? On April 12, 2001, the Russian senior engineer Mikhail Rudenko at the Experimental Design Office 456 in Khimki in the Moscow region admitted in Pravda that 3 cosmonauts had died in space before Gagarin was sent up, namely Alexei Ledovskik, 1957, Sorenti Zabarin, February 1958, and Andrei Mitkov, flight attempt January 1959. The Russian journalist and cosmonaut candidate, June 1965, Yaroslav Golovanov, 1932 to 2003, wrote in his book, Cosmonaut 1, that on November 10, 1960, another cosmonaut, Bilo Konev, also died on board a spaceship in orbit. Several sources reveal that 7 to 11 cosmonauts have died in orbit before Gagarin. The CIA knew about the Gagarin bluff, but said nothing. Instead, they have come up with more and more ridiculous lies themselves. The documentary by the famous photographer David S. Percy, What Happened on the Moon, shows that we have every reason to doubt the authenticity of the manned Apollo flights. The film shows in detail how the pictures from the moon, in conjunction with the first flight on July 20, 1969, Apollo 11, were falsified. Shadows fall in different directions, which suggests artificial lighting, which has been officially denied. In pictures taken from different places, the astronauts were not in darkness, even when they were in the shade. The same background was used and the same hill appeared twice during 2 different landings. Despite the clear view, no stars were visible in the sky. No crater formed under the lunar landing module where the rocket thrusters had braked. No dust had settled on the landing module and its struts. The flag waved despite the fact that there is no atmosphere on the moon. The sound of engines, 150 decibels, was missing in the NASA film, in which it was possible to hear the astronauts' voices. A moon rock with a G marked on it could be seen, as if it was a marked prop. A Coca-Cola bottle was visible on the TV screen. Perhaps they sell them on the moon. The TV signal did not come from the moon, but from Australia, and the Earth was visible from the windows on both sides of the space capsule. It was technically impossible at that time to perform a lunar landing. Bill Kaysing, a technician at the company who built the Apollo rockets, claimed that the chance of reaching the moon and returning safely was around 0.017%. Upon leaving the moon, no flames were seen coming from the rocket's engine, as if wires had pulled up the rocket. A few months before the alleged trip to the moon, a prototype of the landing module was tested. Neil Armstrong lost control of the module at a height of 90 meters, but managed to eject himself. How is it that the lunar landing went perfectly? Astronauts cannot travel to the moon because of the radiation in the Van Allen belts, Inner belt is approximately 2,400 to 5,600 kilometers distant from the Earth and 3,200 kilometers wide. Outer belt is 12,000 to 19,000 kilometers distant from the Earth. This radiation was discovered with the aid of satellite sensors in 1958. Charged particles, protons and electrons, which have been caught in the Earth's magnetic field, move about rapidly in these belts. These particles have been created within the Earth's atmosphere by cosmic radiation and sun winds, corpuscular radiation. They move simultaneously in 3 different patterns, in spirals around the magnetic line, back and forth along the magnetic line, and in orbit around the Earth. Electrons move from west to east, protons from east to west. The most dangerous particles, which contain most energy, have collected in the inner parts of the belts, an area which astronauts absolutely must avoid. If an astronaut passed through these belts, he would become seriously ill or die from the radiation shortly after exposure. The photographs that were taken would likewise have been destroyed. During magnetic sunstorms, the radiation increases. On such occasions, it can be 1,000 times stronger than usual. The Apollo 16 mission coincided with the most intensive sunstorm ever. A 2-meter layer of lead would have been necessary to protect the astronauts, according to the physicist Ralph Rene. We are protected by lead when X-rays of our teeth are taken. The space capsule had a thin shell of aluminium. Due to the radiation, the Russians never attempted to send anyone to the moon. Bill Kaysing believed that the astronauts circled the Earth for 8 days, and that NASA showed fake pictures of the moon in the meantime. The pictures were taken in the Nevada desert at a secret military base called Area 51, where there is crater-covered ground, which looks similar to the moon. If NASA's moon film is shown at double normal speed, the astronauts appear to be running in the Earth's gravitational field. The statistics from the unmanned flights allowed too small a margin for successful flights, whereas the manned flights were nearly exclusively successful. Despite the fact that the electrical system of Apollo 12 was critically damaged by lightning, it successfully managed to land on the moon using just the reserve system. Only a child could believe in such a fairy tale. When a real attempt was made in 1970 with Apollo 13, everything went wrong. The question is, what is true and what is bluff? At least 25% of Americans believe man has never landed on the moon. The Apollo hoax cost the American taxpayers $40 billion. We will never know what the cost would have been if the U.S. government had really tried to put a man on the moon. One thing is certain, it is no longer possible to trust our authorities. They are notorious liars and also quite careless. Goethe wrote, "Nothing is more terrifying than extreme ignorance." In today's world, information is regarded as credible if it coincides with the opinions of the government. Unofficial information from other sources is completely ignored. As far as history goes, what you think is truth may just be propaganda.